All right, welcome guys. On today's panel, we will be talking about all roads leading to Appchain. So we'll take a little bit of a deep dive into the reasoning behind all of these great projects, pivoting to an Appchain, launching an Appchain. So I guess we'll start off with some introductions. So do you want to introduce yourselves and what you guys are building or working on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, George. So my name is Nikhil. I'm product lead at the Wormhole Foundation.
I'm Mark from the Peace Data Association, one of the directors there, been contributing for 3 years now.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I run strategy at Ava, which is a derivatives exchange.
Cool. Welcome guys. Thanks for joining today. So the first question is, when and why did you decide to launch an Appchain and transition over? And what were some of the key reasonings behind that?
Yeah, sure, I can go first. So the Appchain that we use at Wormhole is called Wormhole Gateway. It's a Cosmos SDK chain that adds security to the Wormhole protocol and also serves as a router chain in the Cosmos ecosystem to help us scale up our connections to Cosmos chains and also bring liquidity in and out of the Cosmos ecosystem. We decided to launch Wormhole Gateway originally for security. So Wormhole Gateway provides a security feature for Wormhole token transfers called the Global Accountant. The Global Accountant is a token balance integrity checker that is enforced by the Wormhole Guardians, which are the 19 sort of validators on the Wormhole network. And it ensures that you can never take more tokens out of an ecosystem than the number of tokens that have been bridged into an ecosystem. And so this provides a really strong defense in depth check for token transfer invariance. And this was a super important security feature for us to launch that makes sure that Wormhole is resistant to bugs on various chains that Wormhole is connected to. Wormhole is connected to over 30 different blockchains, and that's a lot of ecosystems, and any one of those ecosystems could be hacked, or there could be a bug in one of those ecosystems, and we want to prevent, in the worst case, an infinite mint bug, and the Global Accountant helps us prevent that. So that was originally why we decided to launch an Appchain. Gateway provides a consensus layer for the Guardians to enforce these accounting invariants. But then, as time went on, after we launched the security feature, we realized that there was an opportunity in the Cosmos ecosystem, because we built this as a Cosmos SDK chain. There was an opportunity to not only scale up our Cosmos connections using IBC, but also to bring liquidity in and out of the Cosmos ecosystem from chains that haven't been able to connect to Cosmos in the past, such as Solana. And so that was why we built kind of the router chain feature of Wormhole Gateway, and that's what most chains, when they connect via Wormhole to most Cosmos chains, when they connect to Wormhole, they're connecting to Wormhole Gateway. Yeah, so that's our Appchain story. But,
Amazing. So maybe just before I say why PEF Network launched is Appchain, PEF is an oracle specialized in price feed. We have today 450 price feeds, updating 2 to 3 times per second. And in 21, we launched, let's call it our V1 on Solana mainnet. And pretty much, it was very much where we created those price feeds. We receive inputs on Solana, smart contract aggregates it, and you have an output. You have the piece price aggregate. Problem is, it's a public blockchain. So you have to pay gas fees. And more, it gets more expensive. So this, for the PIS publisher and the PIS networks, it means incurring gas fees. We have to compete with other people that want to lend a big trade, a liquidation, etc. So, and we have actually a Dune dashboard tracking this, but the PIS network, PIS V1 was doing 50% of all Solana transactions. So you could imagine that half of Solana revenue was PIS network. Another problem is Solana went down. And as an oracle, you cannot have stored price feeds. And here came the idea, we call it PISnet, which is, I think, the first Solana virtual machine blockchain. It's validated by all the data publisher. So we have about 100 validators of this Solana fork. And Now we don't have to, let's say, care about gas costs, like downtime, etc. So we kind of have this publicly viewable, publicly accessible, but permission app chain. And on top of it, we have the wonderful Wormhole crew that pretty much attests of what's happening. Like right now, what's the price of PETH? And we use this kind of hub as the source of truth from where like applications can query the price and send it on 50 plus blockchain. So very much the Appchain decision was like, we want to keep public visibility of what's happening, but we don't need a public blockchain. Like no one, like there's no smart contract on it. Like we don't want people to deploy. It's very much just where the aggregation happens, where the price feeds get created. So it was very much like, we need like a private environment, only us can use it. And just forking Solana was an easy way. It goes fast, etc. So I guess that's why, and we're very happy. I mean, we were kind of learning from Cosmos before, and yeah, long live PethNet, I guess.
So AVO is a options and perpetuals exchange. If you think about derivatives exchanges in general, there are two things that are really, really important to you. The first metric is really important to you is latency. And the second really important metric for you is throughput. If you look at both of those two metrics, we were able to unlock at least an order of magnitude improvement by moving onto an app chain. And the reason for that is you can do a lot of things around cranking, block times, and other stuff under the hood, which makes it possible. And that's why you'll notice that every derivatives exchange at this point, there are a couple of exceptions. But at this point, each one is either like using Cosmos, like Hyperliquid, DYDX, or using something else. But there are, if you want to scale and be like a legitimate, like multi-billion-dollar volume a day kind of exchange, you sort of have to make that move, and that's what we did. And we see the improvements. Like yesterday with the ETH pump, we had like 2 billion in notional volume in 24 hours on our ETH per instrument. And if we were living on a general purpose blockchain, that's just not possible to us.
Cool. So from a technical and organizational perspective, right, what were some of the challenges that you faced, you know, when you pivoted to an app chain and you know, launched app chains?
I can go first again. Yeah, I think launching a chain is no joke. You need to know what you're getting into, both from the technical side and the operational side. There are frameworks like the Cosmos SDK that have made launching an app chain a lot easier. They take care of a lot of the gotchas. They make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot and take care of maybe some of the lower level details like consensus. But still, you need to have very good expertise of like the VM. You need to understand the configuration. You need to understand how peer-to-peer networking works. You need to understand how the validator setup works. Because you're going to be working onboarding validators onto your app chain. You need to make sure you inform them about a secure setup to make sure they don't get hacked. So there's a lot that goes into technically launching an app chain. You can't just like throw one engineer at it and hope for the best. You have to, it's a long-term project that you have to plan for and that you have to dedicate a lot of resources to. So I think that on the technical side, that's the main thing. Is it's a big project that you have to plan for, and you have to have expertise in the VM and ecosystem. On the operational side, you're dealing with onboarding validators. Wormhole Gateway, similar to PithNet, is a permissioned proof of authority chain. It's not meant to be public, but it still has validators. The validators on Wormhole Gateway are the 19 Wormhole Guardians. They are validator companies. They're used to running infrastructure. They run full nodes and validators for lots of other chains, but they still need to onboard onto a new chain. They still need to set up the networking. They still need to make sure their setup is secure. And so working with the validators through the setup and then maintenance going forward, like performing upgrades, all that needs to be done, all that needs to be coordinated and carefully done. And it requires a lot of work and overhead. So I think those are the main technical and organizational sort of operational challenges we've seen.
And I would just add also on this, it's like the continuous ops or time to dedicate that it takes. So we use a Solana VM, so we fork, it's pretty much the same, just a few tweaks. But every once in a while, you discover new bugs. You have to fix those themselves. You cannot now just rely on, let's say, the Solana or Ethereum validators to fix it. It's actually the team that has. So very much I don't say you have to double the workforce, but it's as if you have two products now. You have the Oracle, which people use, but on our end, let's say, or the validators end, you have to manage a blockchain. So I think it's just super important to early on know what you want, what you need, stream it to the minimum, and just keep it alive. So tech-wise, I'd actually say it's just time-consuming.
So we are a roll-up on the Optimism stack, and I think we actually had a pretty streamlined experience spinning up a new Appchain. And the reason for that is we outsourced most of the DevOps related stuff to a different team called Conduit, which is, they're called roll-ups as a service. It's a new type of vertical where it's just a team that is really good at spinning up roll-ups for you. And they abstract away all the under the hood BS, and you just don't have to deal with it. So that's what Conduit does for us. And yeah, they're a really good team.
Cool. So from an obviously, how did you see your economic model change? When you pivoted to an Appchain. So even from a tokenomics perspective, how did you guys go through that process?
Yeah. So Wormhole Gateway. One of the things that Wormhole Gateway helps Wormhole do is scale up the connections to Cosmos chains. And so the security model of Wormhole as an interoperability protocol is that there are 19 Wormhole Guardians. These 19 Wormhole Guardians are large validator companies. They're fully doxed, well-known actors. And the 19 Guardians run full nodes for every single chain that Wormhole is connected to. And they do this for security reasons so that each one of them can independently observe messages that are emitted on the source chains and independently verify the messages that are observed, that are emitted on those source chains. So as you can imagine, it costs a lot to be a Wormhole Guardian. Each Guardian needs to run full nodes for 30 plus chains. That's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be managed. That's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be run. With Wormhole Gateway, we can now use Gateway as a router chain in the Cosmos ecosystem and connect to Cosmos chains via IBC. So that means that to support all Cosmos chains, Wormhole Guardians only need to run a full node for one chain. That's Wormhole Gateway. So this drastically reduces the amount of operational overhead and cost that it takes for the Guardians to support chains in the Cosmos ecosystem. And that's been super helpful. There's been a lot of inbound interest from Cosmos chains to connect to Wormhole, and being able to support Cosmos chains so cheaply has been kind of a game changer for us.
On PithNet itself, there's actually, let's say, no value at risk overall. We created a token out of thin air, which is purely for a gas token to become a validator, so the publisher gets X amount of tokens, and to just then stream their prices via transaction, they just spent what we call P-gas, but it's pretty much useless for us. And so very much it's more to be thought of as the back end of the piece price feeds. And this is where we'll people don't care that much about PethNet. They care about the price feed. Arguably, it's the same, but the security via value is going to come from, let's say, PIS staking, which happens on Solana. So it's like from PIS perspective, we've just pretty much forked Solana next week, had the Appchain running, everyone equal stake, let's say no risk there. But also with Wormhole, we're actually able to send messages to change PethNet. So if we want to, at some point, start having like staking there or whatever, we'll be able to do so.
George, can you repeat the question, please?
Sorry?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So how did you see your economic model change and also from a tokenomics perspective when you decided to launch an Appchain?
So from an economic model perspective, I mean, our users don't pay any gas fees. So we pay all the gas fees on behalf of the users, and we also pay the gas fees to post the call data for native DA on Ethereum. So yeah, it is more expensive. That's a trade-off you make for an enhanced UX for users. It is a decent amount of money, but it's not like something that crazy. So it is manageable, especially as you scale up. It definitely works. In terms of tokenomics, I know like other projects are playing around with like incorporating tokenomics into like staking your native token for validators and all that stuff. And I think there's interesting design space that we have not really looked into yet. So as of now, our token, RBN, has no relationship with anything around consensus on our rollup.
Cool. So from a community perspective, right, how did your communities respond to you guys announcing that you wanted to launch an Appchain, that you were going to launch your own chain? So how were they responsive to it? Were they happy? What was some of the feedback?
I mean, no one except data publisher, let's say, interact with our Appchain. So someone, and I guess even Pith users, like actual devs, don't even know about PethNet, the Appchain. They just care about the end product. So, and all our, let's say, community facing is happening on Solana. So we have the governance on Solana, staking on Solana, and like if we take community as they wouldn't even know. But where it was actually fun to see is, I think we are the first pretty much SVM chain, and it opened the mind of other devs, be like, oh, what if I'd just ship another SVM chain? And I think Maker is actually entertaining the idea. So more like dev community-wise, like this more like, and we've had a bunch of people asking us questions. They want to launch their own SVM, etc. So, so dev community is like very interested because like of all the benefits an Appchain brings, the retail community doesn't care.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I mean, retail just cares about the end product, and they like the fact that they don't have to pay anything. They like the fact that it's fast, and all of that comes with the under-the-hood technical unlocks that come with an Appchain. So I wouldn't say retail knows that we're an Appchain. Honestly, I bet most of them don't even know, but they definitely love the product, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I would mostly agree with with what's been said already. With a slight caveat for Wormhole Gateway. So similar to PithNet, Wormhole Gateway is mostly an infrastructure chain. End users don't really care about it. It's really being used by the guardians to enforce security. Most end users and devs don't really interact with it, or if they are interacting with it, they have no idea at all on various front ends. However, the one thing that I think Wormhole Gateway has been able to do for the community is because we're able to much more easily connect to various Cosmos chains via Wormhole Gateway connections, we're able to support a lot more Cosmos chains, and we're able to support those Cosmos chains a lot faster than we're able to support new EVM chains or new other kinds of VM chains. And so in that sense, I think the community has been pretty excited about how we've been able to support Cosmos chains at a much faster pace. And we also have been getting a lot more inbound interest from Cosmos chains as they've realized that the onboarding process has become a lot smoother, a lot more self-serve, and generally just much easier.
Sure. So, what if you're talking to founders or different projects and they're thinking about launching an app chain? What are some of the key considerations that you think they should keep in mind?
Advice to people that want to launch Appchain?
Yeah. So if there's a project, you're speaking to the founder and they're thinking about pivoting, what advice would you give them?
You should definitely do it. It's great we're all aligned here. If you manage to abstract the tech part of it, you've won. At least from the user perspective. Like I get liquidated on Evo, and it's great. Like we always say, bring the DeFi to kind of the centralized finance level. You can only do that if it's as efficient, as smooth as trading on Binance. And so Appchain, I think today all the fastest way and the closest thing you can use ship to actually arrive at that state. So you should definitely do it. Other advice, for example, running SVM, not many people know Solana deeply, it's Rust, it's quite obscure. So try to pick things or there is big support. Whether it's Conduit, Caldera, whomever, pick well who you're gonna launch this with. And ideally, you don't have to think on it a lot because you have amazing provider that's abstracted for you. So do it, but pick a good partner to do it.
I'd say there are two types of companies that want to build on an app chain. The first is the ones that think it'll lead to a token repricing or something. And I don't really have those conversations. And then there's the other cohort that's okay, for example, you're an exchange, you care about latency, you care about bandwidth, and it really makes sense to make that move. Once you're at that stage, it makes, from a business perspective, it makes sense to do it. It's not just a money grab. And that once you're done, you're actually trying to do it. Then I would highly recommend, honestly, using the vanilla. I would say the vanilla version of an app chain is just spinning up a roll-up on the OP stack with Conduit. It's been an amazing experience. And if you're not a strong, DevOps guy or whatever, just abstract away as much as possible because there are at this point, there are a lot of resources at your disposal with roll-ups as a service. They can take care of a lot of that, and you can just focus on your business.
Yeah, I would say I would just add a third category to that list of people who want to build app chains, and that's people like Pith and Wormhole, who use it for infrastructural reasons. Those are much more bespoke use cases. Maybe you won't find it as common, but if you're an infrastructure provider, having an app chain can be really useful to do, custom things for your protocol. For Wormhole, it's, improving Cosmos connections, scaling up Cosmos connections, and having a coordinated layer where the Guardians can enforce a security feature. For PithNet, it's being able to publish tons and tons of prices really, really fast without needing to worry about gas prices. And so keep that in mind if you're an infrastructure provider and an app chain would help you for some reason that's maybe similar to ours or something else. That's another great reason to launch an app chain. But I would also agree with what Mark said. When you launch an app chain, the marker of success is that no one knows they're using an app chain. It's all abstracted away behind the scenes. It takes a lot of hard work to get there, and so be very cognizant of that. I've never used a framework like Conduit or done an OP stack rollup, so I don't know exactly what that experience is like. I've used the Cosmos SDK, and Probably smoother than doing a Solana VM app chain, but still a lot of work. So know what you're getting into and have the marker of success be that users have no idea that they're using an app chain.
By the way, sorry, didn't mean to discredit the whole infra thing. Like, that was definitely in the second category. I just used derivatives as an example. Like, definitely a legitimate use case. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you guys. That concludes the All Roads Lead to App Chains panel. So thank you very much for your insights. I hope you all found it useful. Thanks, guys.